Hey, it's Kara, your host. I'm here today because I'm often asked, what should I read next? Or what is your all time favorite book? And that is why I created this list. This list isn't a declaration of the greatest books of all time. Rather, it's a collection of the stories I can't stop thinking about, the ones I've recommended more times than I can count, and that continue to live rent free in my head. Whether you're looking for your next unforgettable read, or just want to see what books have shaped my reading life, I hope this guide of 25 books inspires you to discover a new favorite. Head on over to the link in the show notes or to bookishflights.com/read/25 books. Hi, I'm Kara Infante, and this is Bookish Flights. In each episode, I chat with one bookish guest as we take some time to sample and savor the pairing recommendations from their bookish flight. We hope to give you suggestions to cultivate your TBR list and nurture your leisure time through books. In today's episode, I am chatting with Gordon Korman. Gordon is a household name in the middle grade space. With over 100 titles to his name, he's written a book for every kind of reader in this age group, from reluctant to voracious and all the shades in between. His brand new adventure, Snoop, is the story of a screen-obsessed boy who finds himself trapped at home and discovers that life gets harder when screens are all you have. Born in Montreal, Quebec, Gordon grew up in Thornhill, Ontario, and now lives in New York with his family. Welcome to the show, Gordon.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yes, well, I feel like we are so much more than our bios. So I love to start out with, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, obviously, I'm a writer of kids' books who's been at it for a really, really long time. I
Yeah.
don't know how much your readers know about me already, but my first book was my seventh grade English assignment, like
Wow.
close to literally 50 years ago. And in a very fluky, sort of random way, it got published. It came out when I was a freshman in high school, and I've really never had another job, right? So not only am I a kids book writer, but I sort of feel like writing for kids is my life's work and something that I've been doing since I was a kid. I know that when I talk about, oh, well, Snoop is my 106th book, I hear a lot of, like, bruh, you must be the fastest writer in history. And my answer is just sort of not really. Like, not that I'm a slow writer,
Yeah.
but the reason why I have such a big list is because I got this crazy early, let's face it, lucky head
Yeah.
start when I was a middle school kid, and I've just been writing ever since.
Yeah. That is an incredible story. I've had two younger authors that have been on. They were 11 and 13 and they've both been published. And that, when I was talking to them, I'm like, this is such an amazing feat. So I can only imagine what it was like for you when you got, as a freshman and then you're starting to write. Because you say 100 books and that's incredible. Like just an incredible amount.
Yeah, I mean, well, because I've been at this 50 years,
Yeah.
it's been steady. At no point has it ever been like, oh, got to keep writing, got to keep, got to keep churning. I've done a number of series over the years.
Yeah.
That tends to give you higher numbers, I guess, if you're shooting for a big number. I had my 100th book, The Fort, come out in 2022, and
Okay.
when I started doing school visits for it. I didn't think it would be such a big deal to have 100 books, but kids actually were the ones who sort of changed my mind on
Yeah.
that. And I should have known because I remember whenever you do an author visit, kids are always like, "Oh, how many books have you written?" And as soon as my number, got up into, I don't know, the mid 80s or something, the next question was always, what are you going to do for book 100? It was like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Are
Yeah,
you going
that's
to have a
still 20 books
party?
away.
Yeah, is someone going to shoot off fireworks? Is there going to be this mega celebration? But you know what? They were right, and I was wrong because if I could somehow go back in time to that seventh grade ELA class and kind of whisper in the ear of 12-year-old me, who's, working on book one, like one of these days we're going to have 100 or
Yeah.
106. That would have been, mind blowing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that sometimes we have to do that. And maybe that's where writing for children, or like you said, the children are the benefit of that, right? Do you think that that has kept you young in writing for children?
I mean, I have a lot of fans. I don't know how young they consider me to be.
Yeah.
I remember doing school visits when I was, I don't know, like 19, and I guess I was not that much older than my audience, but they didn't look at me and say, "Oh, he's one of us,"
Yeah. I guess I
Um,
meant young at heart. Do you feel young at heart
yes,
when
I
writing?
do,
Yeah.
and I feel like I think like a kid.
Yeah.
There are seventh graders who, in my opinion, have already forgotten how it feels to be a sixth grader. And my mom is 87,
Okay.
and she is just one of these people who remembers exactly how it felt to be a kid. If I ever get stuck on how a character would react to something, or where a character's head would be at, she is always my go-to, right?
Yeah.
She in fact still at her age hates it when the back to school ads come on in the summer, at the end of July or beginning of August. And I'm like, Mom, no one's making you go back to school. You haven't gone back since the 1950s, but it still creeps her out because she thinks like a kid.
Yeah, it's so funny you say that because I was just home visiting family. And so I saw my grandma, my aunt, my mom, and they were talking about how they still get sad when children go back to school. And I'm thinking, like, well, you don't really have children that are going
Yeah.
back to school.
It's the
So what are
same
you
thing.
getting sad about? But like you said, maybe it's still just that feeling that they have. And it's so funny that you bring that up because I was having this moment of trying to understand, like, why are you sad? Like, what's happening here? So, well, now you have had Snoop come out, which is, as you said, your 106th book. But for the listener that maybe hasn't picked it up yet, can you tell them a little bit about it?
Oh, sure. So Snoop is about a screen obsessed, tech obsessed kid, Carter, who goes on spring break skiing and gets into a somewhat freaky accident, a collision with his kid brother, who he's supposed to be watching, and breaks both legs in the same place at the same time. So he is completely stuck at home. He's doing all his school virtually. He is lonely. He is bored. He is isolated. And there's a rumor that that the girl he's had a crush on since kindergarten is getting real close to his arch enemy in the seventh grade. So he's got to get to the bottom of this. But how could he do that? He's stuck at
Yeah.
home. And he realizes that right next to the school, there's this park. And the police department has a camera in that park. And anyone can check the feed of that camera. It's online. So he realizes that Lacey and Maddox will have to walk right by that camera every single day, and he can check out what's
Yeah.
going on with them. So he does it just because he's bored, he's isolated, but he becomes addicted to snooping, right? And there are other cameras in town, and he realizes that with a little bit of work, you can get into some of the harder ones, the ice cream store and the 7-Eleven parking lot. And it gets so bad that his mom has a drone and he figures out how to mount a camera on it, and he's literally flying this thing around town snooping on his friends.
Yeah. As I was reading this, I was thinking you portrayed so well. I'm a physical therapist by trade, actually,
Mhm.
turned book podcaster, but like even just the transitions and he's in these big, huge, bulky casts and getting in and out of the car and all of the feelings that he might go along with that, right? Like kind of the embarrassment of I don't want my friends to see me trying to like amble into the car with all these casts on um and how he felt when he took his mom's drone. You did that so well. I felt like this will teach any child, right? And that's what you do with your books. You make it so relatable for them. So I appreciate that because I read these books with my children, and the humor that you insert in them too, it just makes it so accessible for the children.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't sit down thinking that Carter was going to be any specific kind of kid
Yeah.
besides, the idea that sort of being screen obsessed got him into this mess, and it sort of holds him back while he's in this mess. And yet, for some reason, I felt him incredibly. He was very real to me while I was writing Snoop, and I think that. Obviously, if you're going to say the moral of the story is, which, I don't certainly like, to me, telling a good story is more important than, writing a
What
sort
you're
of
gonna say.
21st century Aesop's fable.
Yeah.
Um, but like, to me, the moral of the story is just there is this incredible amount of information out there for adults and kids, right?
Yeah.
If we just bothered to go out there and look, the question is, no one is really holding us back. There are absolutely no guardrails on that. And for Carter, I mean, he is not the kid with the greatest willpower in the world, but ultimately he's getting himself deeper and deeper into trouble. And I guess the moment he just has to reach is, the old saying, if you find yourself in a hole, stop digging, right? I mean, and it literally takes
Yeah.
that for Carter.
Yeah, and that I think was another good part for children to see, right? Is he finally recognizes where he's at in doing this, right? And then the redemption that comes kind of after that once he recognizes it.
Right. Well, I mean, I think he's in a real bind, right? Because as he's spying on his friends, he also starts to see these animals around. If people are looking at the our cover model, right, the red panda on the cover
Yeah.
of Snoop, he's finding these animals, and he just knows that there is absolutely no reason why there should be, an Asian animal on the streets of his kind of random, sleepy suburban town. And he starts to do a little bit of research, and not only are animals like a red panda or a swift fox or a three-toed sloth supposed to be from places hundreds, actually thousands of
Yeah.
miles away, but they're also all endangered species. So this is the mystery that he has to solve. And the problem is the only way for him to solve the mystery is by doing more snooping,
Yeah.
not less. So
Yeah.
he's sort of trapped between what he knows is the right thing to do, but at the same time, knows he's just getting himself into a lot of trouble, not just with his friends, not just with his family, but with the police.
Yeah. Yeah, and that becomes the crux of his situation, right? Of like, what do I do here? Well, what do you, I mean, you've written in middle grade space for your whole life. What have you learned about the readers of this age group? What do you enjoy about writing for them?
Oh, I mean, when because I started writing as a kid, everyone was like, oh, you write kids' books now because you're a kid, but when you become a grown-up, it's going to be the great American novel, right? Or actually,
Yeah.
it started as the great Canadian novel because I'm from Canada, but
Yeah.
eventually shifted to the great American novel. I love the middle grade audience because I sort of feel like it's the time in everybody's life where you become in charge of your own opinion, right? And we all love our picture books too, but I,
Yeah.
I feel like with picture books, there's always somebody else involved, right? Like, oh, I love that book because my mom did these amazing voices, or my dad used to put on this hat, or whatever. But middle grade is sort of that moment where you're the only person who decides whether or not I like this,
Yeah.
and the decisions that you make at that sort of key moment stick with you for your entire life. And because I'm dating myself, but my first book was published in 1978. Like, I will run into people in their 40s or even 50s who'll take a look at one of my books and be like, I read that when I was in fifth grade.
Love
which
it.
obviously makes me feel extremely ancient. But I think it's a testament to those first choices that we make of what we love. They become a very big part of who we believe we are.
Yeah. And that's so true. I get many texts or calls from friends that'll say, okay, I have an 8-year-old that's really into, adventure. He liked this book. What book do you think he would like? And I think still with best of intentions, we're help guiding these children, right? But there's so many more options, right? Of trying to figure out what genres they may like or where you might want to steer them. You're right, because now they become, and I see it in my son. Like he's like, no, I get him books from the library because he'll be at school and I'll go during the day and he's not here. And then I get him, he's like, well, I don't want to read these. And I was like, okay, but like, I loved this book when I was a
Yeah.
kid. You don't want to read Number of the Stars by Lois Lowry? Like, no, or whatever it may be. I'm like
It's the
trying to,
gold seal.
yeah,
Sometimes sometimes there's a little awardophobia,
yeah,
because we've been burned before by that gold seal. But the thing is, um, we've all been parents of reluctant readers, and one of the things that I'm the most proud of is that my books are kind of a favorite of reluctant readers and kind of can read but won'ts.
yeah,
Um, but uh, but it's easy to despair as a parent or a teacher when you have a kid who just turns up their nose at absolutely everything. But what I would say is keep plugging away, just because it only takes one love connection to
yeah,
show a kid what reading can be. So you're never more than one good recommendation away from hitting that spark, but you never know what that recommendation is going to be.
yeah. And I've thought that many of times when I've had an adult tell me they're not really readers. And I always think in the back of my mind of, you just haven't found the right book yet, right? You haven't found the one that's unlocked you where like, I want to keep going down this path, right? And so it's funny that I never applied that to children.
Right. Well, I find with adults now, it's audiobooks, right? Because they all have these commutes, so it's like, oh, I'm in the car, 40 minutes every single day. So audio is sometimes the entryway to getting back into reading.
Yeah. Yeah. Or the endless to-do list. So we can multitask with the audiobook at the same time.
Right.
So you've probably been asked this before, but out of your 106 books, do you have a favorite that you've written?
I mean, I really don't.
Okay.
Um, you know, I um, I get the most excited, as I think most writers do, about what's newest, and
Sure.
that kind of makes sense, right? I mean,
Yeah.
Snoop has been out 2 weeks, right? So not that many people have read it, So obviously, a lot of things are up in the air, right? Like, is it going to be popular? Are people going to love it as much as they love the others? Will they find it funny? Does it have a chance to make the bestseller list? I love my other books too, but that those questions have been answered for them more or
Yeah.
less. So I think that we are just naturally kind of focused more on the stuff that's really new.
Yeah. And it's in the forefront of your mind. And
Yeah,
so
and
that
you've
makes
written it the
sense.
most recently. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what is your wish for readers with Snoop? What do you hope they'll take away when they read it?
I mean, I just think there's something amazing about the power of a story. I I always found as a reader and a viewer, right, that when a TV show or a movie came out and it was like, oh, based on a true story or ripped from the headlines, that did nothing for me.
Yeah.
Like I love the idea that this that couldn't happen in a million years. Some guy made it up. In a way, would be a better hook for me.
Yeah.
And my inspiration for Snoop. I love old movies, and one of my favorite things to do is to find kind of like a rip-roaring classic movie plot and find a way to kind of reinvent it for kids, right? And
Okay.
and in the case of Snoop, that was Rear Window, right? The Alfred Hitchcock movie from before I was born, right? Much
Okay.
less my readers, um, where a guy I mean, breaks his leg. He only breaks one, but we think bigger in the 21st century. Um, and he's stuck at home, and he looks out his rear window. He lives in New York City, so it's kind of a big building across the way, and he
Okay.
finds these mysteries and intrigues. And I just sort of thought to myself, well, looking out the window is not bad for 1952, but
Sure.
in 2025, we can do a little bit better than this, right? We've got cameras and we've got internet and we've got drones. So in my mind, Snoop began as sort of Rear Window for kids, right?
Yeah.
And
That's so
obviously,
fun.
the relationships developed, and Carter and his little brother, and Carter and the kids in his class, and like his best friend and the chairman of the board, and all that stuff. But it really began as a delivery system for sort of an old story.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so fun. I'm hearing a lot of nostalgia in our episode. We've talked about the picture books, we've talked about the love of the classic movies, and and as you heard me say, I try to have my son read my nostalgia reads too. Like,
Right.
I remembered loving this as a kid. You should read it too. So that's great. Well, let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about who you are as a reader. What genres do you enjoy reading?
Well, I mean, I started with humor, right? When I was 2 years old, the cartoons on TV that were my favorites were the ones that made me laugh, and I was sort of a sucker for that. Anything that got me laughing, I would be a fan of. I also really, really like the adventure sort of survival genre.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I'm all over the place as a reader. I like mysteries, um, and I was not as a kid a nonfiction reader, but as an adult, I really started uh, nonfiction as a researcher when
Yeah.
I just sort of needed to get into a topic for a book or a book series or something I was working on. And the minute I started researching, I kind of got hooked on that too. I was like, how long has this been going on? My first project that required a ton of research was called Island, right, which was about kids on a boat trip who get shipwrecked.
Okay.
And I'm not a sailor, so I realized there's a whole, you know, language, right? It's not the floor, it's the deck, and it's not the wall, it's the bulkhead, and it's not the
Yeah.
kitchen, it's the galley. And I was like, I'm not going to be able to wing this or fake this, right? Like, you really need to know about this stuff.
Yeah.
So I got myself a sailing manual, right? I opened it up, and the very first page, it was like, warning, never start the engine until you activate the blower switch. It's really just a vent to kind of blow
Okay.
out the gas fumes from the engine room. Otherwise, you're going to spark this engine, you're going to set fire to the gas fumes. The fumes are going to go straight up the fuel line, and you're going to blow up your own boat, right? I stared at this warning that was on page I. Like, it wasn't even
Yeah.
the sailing manual hadn't even started yet. It was the I, and I was like, wow, there's my climax, right? That's how my kids are going to get shipwrecked in the first place.
Yeah.
And I realized that research can not just help you write the book, it can almost write the book for you,
Yeah.
so that was kind of my discovery of nonfiction as sort of a genre that I love to read as an adult.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it just takes the little gateway to open it for you. Is that, I guess, one other question about Snoop? Did you have to do some research for the animals that were in Snoop as
A
well?
little bit, yeah.
Okay.
I know I kept like losing touch with whether it was the three-toed sloth or the two-toed sloth that was actually endangered. Plus, I mean, you know, there was sort of believability issues, right? Like, the African elephant is endangered too, but no one is going to not notice
Yeah.
an African elephant on the streets of a sleepy town, you know. So I needed, I mean, in a way, the red panda is perfect, right? Because it has that ringtail. So
Yeah.
if you're looking at it, you know, through a murky camera at night, you're gonna be positive it's a raccoon. You know, so there was a certain amount of research with that, and also like, you know, if there were to be a endangered animals smuggling ring, you know, how could it work, and would it even be possible,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I think we all, you know, back in the pandemic when we all became obsessed with Tiger King, we realized that there actually is a lot of profit in sort of exotic and in some cases
Yeah.
endangered species, right? And that uh, was not a huge part of Snoop, but I think the ring had to make sense
Sure.
in order to be kind of like the, you know, to go back to Alfred Hitchcock words, like the MacGuffin of Snoop, right? Because it had to make sense that this was a profitable thing that he was really working to kind of unravel, right?
Yeah.
And I think that the sad part is our obsession with endangered species is part of why they are so profitable, right? Like we are kind of fueling the ring by being so fascinated by these animals.
Yeah, absolutely. And knowing that they're out there, I actually, as you're talking, I'm like, I have interviewed someone that her parents had like an exotic animal farm, and so they're out there. I don't, they weren't smuggling, right? But they had, that was what she grew up with, was this exotic animal. And, I was like, wow, it had to be very interesting.
Yeah, I mean, because most of us don't do it,
Yeah,
we don't really think of it, but there's really no law against it,
yeah,
right? There was a story, the very famous story in England, that a couple of guys bought like a lion cub at Harrods. I think it was kind of a publicity stunt that you can buy anything at Harrods, you know,
yeah,
and they raised it. And you know, as far as anyone could tell, they were extremely humane. It loved them,
yeah,
you know, and eventually it got to be too big, and they had it sort of, I don't know if repatriated is the right word, but reintroduced to the
sure.
wild in Africa. And then after a year, it was completely wild, and they went and they had a tracker track it down, and he totally remembered them,
Yeah.
right? But and that was sort of this incredible moment, which makes people bury the lead on the story, which is you're allowed to have a lion at your
Yeah,
house?
a wild animal. Well, yes, absolutely. Well, how in your busyness between writing and your family and everything else, how do you find time to read?
It's hard, you know, because I feel like writing and reading are so similar, and
Sure.
and there's so much different sides of the same coin that you can it goes from being a fun activity to just like this really convenient procrastination, and for like a writer, that's, you know,
Yeah.
that's the doom, you know, you really, you'll always be able to come up with some reason to procrastinate. So for me, what I use, I sort of set my floor with the car, right?
Okay.
I do a lot of school visits, so I'm in the car a fair bit, and I just listen to books, kids' books,
Yeah.
adult books, and that sort of keeps my reading sparked.
Yeah. That's a great point. Like you said, with your commute, here you are with the audiobooks.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Well, you have brought three books with you today and in the form of a book flight. Can you tell us how you chose these?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think that because because I'm a kids book writer, and I've written middle grade and also a handful of young adult books. It's sort of a middle grade young adult book flight, and then humor would certainly be um, the main common element of these three, although it's
Okay.
certainly by no means all they are about.
Sure.
But I think that, you know, I think all of our books are more than just like, oh, these books are exciting or these books are funny. I mean,
Yeah.
there's something more to all, but probably when people think of me, they do think of not only of humor, but humor first.
Yes, absolutely. I know I do. And I back to like the library for listeners, if you're like, well, how do I choose books for kids? I have like go-to authors that I know my kids love. And so if they're not with me, I'll just try to grab a book from that author for them. So as
Mhm.
a side note, I meant to add that back in our library conversation, but you are one for my son. So
Okay, well, that's cool. That's great to hear.
yeah. So what's the first book you brought today?
So the first book is Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing for by Judy Blume.
Okay.
Hardly an unknown name in the kids book space. Um, and I'm thrilled when I speak to kids at how many kids still read this book today. Because the reason why that book is special for me is because I was in fourth grade the year that book came out.
I love
And
it.
and I remember that it was kind of a big deal. Like we thought that this book was about us,
Yeah.
right? Um, it was also the book that introduced the character Fudge, right? Which ultimately, the Super Fudge and Fudgemania and it kind of went in a lot of different directions. But in Tales of Fourth Grade Nothing, Fudge was a baby, right?
Yeah.
And Fudge wanted to be a dog, or he thought he was a dog, or something like that. And I have, believe it or not, I mean, I don't remember this, but according to my parents, when I was 2 years old, I thought I wanted to be a dog when I grew up, I think was
Okay.
right. And I used to eat dinner under the table for a while because I thought that it was possible to become a dog through training.
Yeah.
So I always had this special connection to Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing.
Yeah, and I can just picture as a child, right? Everything seems like it's just meant for you, and there's that kismet there when that happens. Like this was for us.
Right. Well, anyway,
So
it certainly made an impression on me.
yeah, so that was Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing by Judy Blume. What's the next book you brought today?
So this is a little bit cheating because it's kind of a series, but the Jack Henry books by the author Jack Gantos. To me, I did not read them when I was a kid because they didn't exist yet, but they are um, my favorite middle grade books, and
Okay.
uh, they're the books that I most wish I had written myself. And Jack Gantos, so he's won Newberries. I think he had a Prince honor, which is the YA
Yeah.
Newbery. Um, his Joey Pigza books are probably more famous than the Jack Henry ones. But I don't know, there's something about this particular character. Maybe it is very similar to Carter in Snoop, right? Like I don't know why I see Carter so clearly, right?
Yeah.
I can't give you, it isn't like, oh, his dad is a tech executive or he is a bully or he is a science kid, right? Like he doesn't have anything like that going on.
Sure.
But this kid is so incredibly real to me, Jack Henry. Also, I will love this series forever because at one point, Jack, I'm a big detractor of what I call the dead dog genre, right? I sort of in kids' books, there's a lot of books where the dog dies, right? Like
Yeah.
Old Yeller, the
We were
dog
scarred.
dies. Yeah, exactly. Stone
Yeah.
Fox, and then you get to middle school, and it's like, oh yeah, I've made it. I'm past all these dead dogs, and then the first book you read is Where the Red Fern
Redfern
Grows, right?
grows.
Like so,
Yeah.
the double whammy, right? The
Yeah.
dog dies, and then 3 pages later, the other dog dies. But uh, Jack has the best um, dead dog moment of any uh, kid's book that I know, which is he's trick or treating and he brings his dog with him. He's in Fort Lauderdale, and an alligator comes out of the canal and actually takes the dog, right? Which is in a way horrible.
Yeah.
But I guess he has this revelation that he was supposed to be bringing his little brother with him, and he's like, "Wow,
Yeah.
that could have been, So at the same time, it's tragic, and it's comic, right? And I think
Yeah.
that that's something that Jack Gantos, the author, does, I think, better than any of us in kids' books. Is just sort of he can write slapstick as well as anybody, but at the same time, he manages to forge the bridge between this antic stuff that's happening and real life and real grievances and how
Yeah.
it's sort of tough to be a kid. It's just it's a unique skill that he has that I think comes from his personality. It's something that I admire. I wish I could do. I can't quite do it the way he does. So I'm going with, and I think he does it in Jack Henry, those books better than even his other ones.
Okay. These are new to me books, so I'm so excited that you brought these today. Do you have to read the books in order in the series, or can we kind of
No,
pick them up? Okay, that's what I was like. That's the beauty of middle grade a little bit, right? Is I feel like it doesn't have to be so like one and two, and so if I'm at the library, I can get what's there.
right. Although I do think that it's possible to track Jack by what, like the subtitles are, fourth grade this or fifth grade. So if you
Oh, it
really
makes it
wanted to,
easy.
you
Yeah.
you could start. I think you can start with him in fourth grade and then fifth and then sixth. So it's not that hard.
Okay.
But you absolutely do not have to read them in order.
Wonderful. Well, I'll be adding these to my list. So thank you for bringing the Jack Henry books by Jack Gantos. And then what's the last book you brought today?
So this is a bit of an odd choice for kids' books, but bear with me because I will explain it. It is the original, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams,
Yeah.
um, which might be my all-time favorite book. It's obviously many people know this book. It is a high comedy, silly science fiction story, British too.
Yeah.
So it has that sort of Monty Python kind of humor to it. But I think that I add that to a list of kids' books just because I think that it is the transition book for so many of a certain kind of reader from kid to adult,
Yeah.
right? That I bet there are so many kids who read books like Jack Gantos's books and mine, and maybe were Captain Underpants fans before that. And their first adult book is Hitchhiker's Guide at some point when they're in middle school, right?
Yeah.
Or certainly the beginning of high school. So I think that not a kid's book, but I think it is a book read by so many kids.
Yeah. And keeping that humor piece of it, right? Like it's
Right.
definitely a great bridge to the next step up. So I love that. That is a great addition to the book flight.
And I think, with the three, the kind of humor gets a little bit more sophisticated, right?
Sure.
Like um, authors of kids' books tend to visit a lot of schools, right? And
Yeah.
you tend to see what's going on there. And I always sort of wonder why we don't teach humor in school, right? I mean, we teach every possible skill, but for some reason, our education system seems to believe that you're born with this sense of humor, and it's never going to get any better. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And think about your adult life. Like, what do you use more? Your sense of humor or your ability to recognize foreshadowing or
Sure.
your ability to diagram sentences or whatever.
Yeah.
Yet when you look at the curriculum, right? Um, there aren't that many funny books by the time you hit like the middle grade moment, right? It tends to be more award-winning stuff and the stuff that oh, it's teachable, and we're going to talk
Yeah.
about theme and we're going to talk about we're going to talk about all these literary kind of techniques, and yet, like you learn to get jokes by being exposed to things that are funny, right?
Yeah.
And teachers will say to me all the time, like, "Oh, I'm reading this book. It's hilarious. I'm cracking up." And it's going like boom right over my kids' heads.
Yeah.
What am I doing wrong? And my answer is you're doing everything exactly right. Like they need this, right? You may miss the joke this time, but next time you'll sort of get it a little bit, and the time after that, it's a direct hit with you, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a humor guy, like in terms of thinking that it's important, right?
Yeah.
I think that it's definitely a sense of humor is a sign of intelligence. It's something that you absolutely need as an adult. And I cannot be more vehement as saying, kids need to read more humorous books.
Yeah. And I also think there's something to be said about using humor in your own life, right? Because there's something about the delivery with your humor, right? Like you can't just go like jokes will fall flat because you don't have the right delivery. So I love what you're saying because I think even the practice of delivering your sense of humor, right? And kind of seeing what works with people and what doesn't and how you're going to deliver it the next time.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
yeah.
And like I think for me, I don't know, I was always this kid where at Thanksgiving dinner, some family gathering, and some uncle would tell a joke and everybody would laugh. And like I admired that. Like I wanted to be that guy,
Yeah.
you know. And even when I was too young to get the joke, or make the joke myself. Like I was always I wanted to be the person who told the really funny joke or the really really great story, and everybody listened. And I think that those are the people who become writers, right? The ones who
Yeah.
want to sort of hold the floor, and everybody else is listening to what you have to say.
Yeah, and I think we all can think about, you can think about people in your life like they are a really good storyteller, and it's because they have that ability to not only deliver but add the sense of humor and the humor piece of that with them. So, well, thank you so much for bringing these books with you today. I really appreciate that. How I love to end our show is with a speed round of questions that you can answer really quick.
Okay.
Are you a rereader?
Yes. And
Okay,
as a kid, I was even more.
love it. What is one book you've read that has changed your life?
That has changed my life. Um, I don't know. I mean, let me go with Into Thin Air by John
Ooh.
Krakauer, the
Yep,
Everest story.
yep. Pulling in that adventure piece. I like it. Where is your favorite place to read?
Well, because I travel, airplanes, hotel
Yeah.
rooms, it's usually where I have the most reading time.
Yeah, gives you that exclusive time there. What are you reading next?
So I have, it started with my kids' book connection that I've gotten really hooked on the mystery series that J.K. Rowling writes under the name Robert Galbraith,
Yes,
right?
yeah.
And I know there's a new one that came out last month, so that's in my queue.
Okay. Oh, I'll have to take a look. I read the first two of that series, but assuming she's probably a few more into it at this
I think
point.
there's maybe six or even
Oh,
seven right
well, I got my work cut out for me
now.
then.
Okay, and they're long too. So.
Yeah, they are. So, well, thank you so much for coming on the show with me today. I know your time is precious, and I appreciate all you've given me.
Oh, this has been a lot of fun. Thank you so much for letting me come and talk about Snoop.
Yes, you're welcome. Thank you so much for listening to this episode today with Gordon Korman, including his book flight of humorous middle grade and YA books. We'd love to hear what other books you'd pair with this flight at bookishflights.com. If you enjoyed the show, please head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a review. Your review not only helps the show, but it also helps the podcast to reach others. Make sure you are subscribed on Apple Podcasts or Spotify to make sure you will not miss an episode. That's it for today. Thank you so much for listening. As Emma Thompson said, I think books are like people in the sense that they'll turn up in your life when you most need them. Cheers to you, dear readers. Until next time.